gonna take a dirty martini Kettle One, and I want it
Ooh,
murky. Yes.
I like the concept dirty martini. We should go
Yes.
deeper on that.
Different ages, different backgrounds, different stories. One common denominator: the desire to unleash a powerhouse woman. Selling on heels. Give a girl the right shoes and she will conquer the world. Selling is a craft and a science. Come to learn with us the superpower behind behavior for sales. Human Behavior Hacker School.
I just like it. To me, it's a good drink. It's refreshing. I get a buzz, but I'm not hungover the next morning. So that to me, it's a sophisticated drink.
To me, it's too salty. I never can have martini. Maybe I have the wrong bartender.
Maybe, who knows? It might depend on the vodka as well. But if you don't like it too salty, I would say you can have a dirty martini, but make it light on the olive brine.
So you strike me like a classy person. You like classy, easy. When we talked before the interview that you're an introvert and you're good in you're hiding in your place, and your family living on the forest just happen to be my neighbors, and like it's yeah. Do you know that you say a lot about what is the first drink a person asks when you go into a bar?
What is that saying?
It actually has to do with your personality. For example, I was interviewing somebody else and says, what you will have, like anything new, adventure and exotic. And like, okay, you like danger, like, oh, I love contact sport, jumping from planes. Like, yeah, I can know that from your drink.
Yes. Okay, so what do you know about me for my drink?
You're classy, introvert. Maybe you like the vulgar area from the 40s, 50s, and 60s, classic.
Yeah. I tell people, I'm like, I was born in the wrong generation. This I know.
I know that for Dory Martini with the twist, because that's how Humphrey Bogart, Lorraine Bacall, they're the drinks they used to drink. And now you can, if you were asked for an apple martini, I would say it's like you're more on the modern side, but you're a classic.
Yes, definitely. Definitely old soul.
So you know what? No problem with that. I was born on the wrong side of the life. I still wearing clothing from the 60s. I use brooch, and people
That's
says, "Are you
beautiful.
Did you stole your grandmother jewelry?" Like, yeah, part of them
Yeah.
are my grandmother's, and I still like my pearl necklace. So don't
When I go
criticize
to my
me.
grandma's house, I raid her closet and I just wear her clothes. So, she's like, that's a really nice vest you have on. I'm pretty sure I have one of those. I was like, it's yours, Grandma. She's like, you're a mess, Gabrielle.
You see, that's how I know for your first drink. So, Gabrielle, I need to ask you, I love your LinkedIn profile, and there are three phrases then I like. Plant mama, can understand, I can see your plant. You have a green thumb.
Yes, I've developed a green thumb because I was really good at killing plants about 2 years ago. Google and YouTube have been my friend. So yeah, I've developed a green thumb.
And it's something that you're proud of.
I I have like 60 some different kind of plants in my
Wow.
home. Yes. And I keep buying them and I need to stop. But I am very, very proud of the little plant jungle that I have inside of my home right now.
Do you grow your own herbs?
So I have not. I'm at my mom's house right now, and so I'm actually looking out at her herb garden, and so I'll take care of it when she's gone.
Okay. And another one. And I'm sure I'm gonna destroy it. Self development sastres.
Yes.
Sounds like disaster, but your career doesn't show that. Can you tell me how sound?
Yeah. So I was thinking about the phrase. Like, I was thinking about sass, and I've seen things such as like sassy, right? And I think I used to use that. I used to use that adjective in my LinkedIn profile because I wanted to show some level of personality. And I was like, sassy is not the right word. And then I also have an interest in like magic and in divination, tarot card readings, things like that. And I was thinking about the word like enchanting or enchantress. And so I was like, oh, sastress. Like, let me actually merge the two together, because it really is, to me, a reflection of both professional and personal interest. And then it also just made me giggle. So I was like, this is so silly to put this, but let me do it. So that's how sastress came to be. And then being a sales development manager in the majority of my career, being either an individual contributor or a manager in sales development, that's why I have the sales development sastress there.
And most people, the first thing they tell you when you go in sales, like, make your LinkedIn your Bible. You need to look professional. You need to this. My LinkedIn is me wearing dark glasses and smarky smile. Like, that is my personality. You're not going to see me without glasses. I think it's only, I have one picture without. So I having fun with it. But from a sales rep, it was really like, wow, this girl is really different.
Yes. I've had people, I would say past mentors, who have sent me a text or sent me a LinkedIn message, and they're like, hey, you need to make your profile more professional. You need to change your picture. Let me show you other profiles, and this is what you need to emulate. And what I saw was like, these people have a specific career. They have specific interests that don't align to who I am. So like, I have control over how I present myself to the world and how I want to be seen. So in doing something fun, whether that's, having a moniker like sastress, or making the background of my profile just the monstera leaves, or inserting some kind of humor, like, these are the things that bring me joy. So I'm just going to continue to bring myself joy. The end.
Okay, this episode is called Divination Diva. And okay, Diva is from the 40s, 50s, and 60s too, where the Hollywood divas were used to have the red carpet. So that's one other thing they give you away. And let's be clear, Gabrielle and I, we didn't talk before we start the preview on the recording. So it's no way that I can know that from you from before. So I love it. Divination Diva. Come on, Gabrielle, why?
So, I mean, people said it's just be a podcast so people can't hear, but like, I have a tarot card deck right next to me almost all the time. I have oracle cards. I have the I Ching. I have all these tools and resources that are available that will help understand whether it's my current situation or things that I can use to almost prepare myself for what's coming my way. So these are just all divination tools. It's ways of tapping into some kind of universal knowing and having a better understanding of one's engagement in the world around them and what's coming down the pipeline, essentially. So I've started to do more tarot readings, like whether that's for myself, my friends, or even now people that I'm meeting on LinkedIn. So I'm like, all right, well, this is something that I'm doing and people are asking me about. I might as well start reflecting that in my profile. So that's really where Divination Diva came from. The other name I was considering was Divination Dryad, but I was like, that seems too much. I was like, that's too much. So I chose Diva instead.
And you have a degree in arts, correct?
So I went to a liberal arts school, but my major is in public policy analysis.
Okay. And with all this spiritual and the soul from this 40s, 50s, and 60s, you ended up in tech. How you ended up by mistake? Like most women told me, like, I don't know how I ended up, but I love it, so I don't leave it. How was you left college? What was your first job in sales?
So funny enough, I didn't start in sales until 3 years after I graduated college. So like, I lived in Paris, France for a couple years. I was basically living like a genie lifestyle. I was kind of like bouncing around in Paris. I was babysitting and au pairing while over there. I was just trying to like make money under the table so I could pay my bills. And then it's like, all right, let me go back home to Chicago. And it's like, what am I going to do with my life? And I thought I was going to get into like people operations or HR, something along those lines. They didn't want me. So like, I just started applying to sales positions. as I thought that was really what was going to help me have more opportunities once I did figure out what I wanted to do. So I got in, and within maybe a month and a half, I was like, oh, I'm actually pretty good at this. So I've just stuck with it, and now managing sales development teams.
What do you think it make you good on that? Because this is a month and a half, I found out I'm good on that. Do you think that your introversion and being introspective, seeing people from another perspective than this classic sales rep could have been your advantage?
Yeah, I think so. I would, there's the first part of like, how do you know that you're good in sales, right? You can look at the results. What are the numbers? What's your attainment against quota? How I got there, and what I think really fueled my success in sales development as an individual contributor, and also what I think helps me as a manager is I don't want to just throw something at somebody without it actually being relevant. I want to share things that are going to resonate with someone. And so in order to resonate with someone, I have to understand what's going to be most important to them. And so I was just really curious. It's like, before I ever offer any kind of solution, before I ever say what they should actually do, let me have a conversation with them. Let me do my research as well to better understand what's going on in their world. So like, understanding your personas, understanding the systems that they're working in, understanding the numbers that they're held accountable to, even understanding, if it's a company that is dispersed out globally, like what are the complexities around that? So I really just became a student of the people that I was going after. And in being a student and in better understanding who they were, what they were going after, what they actually cared about, I was then able to have better conversations with them. So it's like, that is a demonstration of that wanting to better understand, and that being fueled by some level of introspection or introversion, then 100%, that definitely helps me big time.
Profiling a customer is the challenge sales reps face every day. What if I tell you you can read anyone in 90 seconds? What if I tell you it can be done? Come to learn with us, Human Behavior Hacker School.
Well, number says that only 40% of the sales rep, they know how to, or they can prospecting their clients. When I do the trainings, I always say, I don't teach you how the craft of selling. I teach you the craft of a behavior applied to sell. It's like going to a date. If you know how to dating, you know how to prospecting. You take the time to know that person, where's the food they like. So going down and prospecting in the same way, knowing who is your people, knowing who is your tribe. Put the name that you wanted to put it, and for you is politically correct, but you need to know your people. Because when you know your people, you need to choose your clients before your business. Because when you know them, you talk the same language. And having the same dictionary, it's something like, for me, prospecting can be different than for you. For me, being an introvert can be a different concept for you. Like, there are words that we assume because it's English is the same. Has nothing to do where you was born. It's how you apply those words to your context. And I see you jumping when I said dictionary. Why?
Because, so one of the things that I did, right, when the first role of sales development, one of the things that I observed is that across our AE team, the account executives, each of the account executives had a different background, and that background influenced how they spoke to the prospective customers. And so I just got myself exposed to how everybody talks. Again, everybody talks differently. And so let's say I'm listening to 10 calls a week with 10 different AEs, but the prospects, like their titles, their roles, their responsibilities are all the same. The kind of companies that we're going after are all very similar. I can start picking up, okay, AE number one over here, when he uses the term localization, people understand what's going on. But if someone says translator, it doesn't resonate as strongly. So I just started paying attention to, like, okay, well, what are the words that people are using interchangeably, and how are people actually responding to those words? Are they saying, oh, I get it, you're speaking my same language? Or are they like, I don't know if this person actually knows practically what I do. So once I was able to start figuring out or understanding the patterns in terms of what was resonating most for people, what was giving them those aha moments, I started crafting a language of my own, essentially, when I was talking to people. And so that I do believe is what helped me helped me get like 150, 200% of my quota month over month, because I could speak their language faster. And also when they were saying, say, jargony words, I can ask questions like, hey, you say global marketing, what does that actually look like at your organization? Who's responsible for it? What does that comprise of? And like, what exactly are you trying to accomplish? Because global marketing for you might look totally different than what we understand it to be. So even in demonstrating that level of understanding that there could be differences and nuances, that helped, what I believe, that helped assert me as more of a subject matter expertise than just the sales rep.
So would you agree with the concept that is the craft of selling, behavior, and analytics to understand that maybe if a person coming from a position 10 years ago and the title they have 10 years ago is not the same title and the functions that title has today. I found out, for example, one of the things that it's struck me is now the titles are longer, but they don't comprehend as much as they comprehend the titles before when they're smaller. Now, business development for that, how you feed that in a business card. Now I understand why people don't use business card anymore, but you need to go in a progression to understand what it meant on the culture and in the target you need to talk to, because business developer or project manager in my company is not the same as project manager in your company. In my company is the one who keep me on track and the one who it's exchanging emails with. Project manager, another part is like picking other people's mess. She cleaned my mess.
Yeah, definitely. I think thinking about prospecting even, some of the things that I think are important with that is, of course, like a title is going to tell you one thing, but the context. So let's say if you're looking at someone's LinkedIn profile, let's assume that they're actually putting in bullet points of what they're responsible for. I was like, when I was prospecting, I wasn't just looking at titles. I was researching for keywords. I was looking at the context specifically, because it's not just the fact that somebody has this title that means all of a sudden they're going to see value out of us. Our solutions are supporting specific projects and initiatives, let's say 90% of the time. So like, let me go and find the people who are responsible for those projects and those initiatives. And like that to me is going to be in the context that like that kind of like micro data within somebody's LinkedIn profile. And it's going to be much more important and relevant than just somebody's title alone. I can't tell you how many times I've gone after a VP, a vice president level person. It's like, oh, actually they don't manage anybody. They just have a VP title. That's not a good prospect.
That's what I'm saying is I talked with Mark Shalinsky. He managed data. And when I was talking to him, he opened and blew my mind. I'm like, oh my God, he was showing me the progression of the titles and the responsibilities on the titles for the last 20 years. And when he showed me the data, like, oh, I wasn't so crazy. Like, no, it has changed completely. Now, you're younger than I am. I think I can even be your mom. When I want to talk about age, some people get pissed off when I talk age, but you have...
I don't.
How old are you?
I turned 30 next month.
Yeah, I can. If I was dirty at my teens, I can be your mom. So you're young for the richness of your knowledge.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I think that living abroad, have a free spirit, give you a bigger open perspective and how to capture the things that maybe other people, oh, I miss it.
Yeah.
Who you talk about your grandparents, and so I have the idea that your grandparents and spend time with them help you to understand life in another way and see in another way, maybe.
I think 100%. I would say they've both played a big role. So when I think of my grandparents, I talk about my mom's parents, and so they've both helped me. I would say I feel like they've given me a lot more perspective. Really starting in my college years, what I believe has really shaped me or informed how I view the world is So like my mom's a single mom, like workaholic kind of person when I was younger. Was very much focused on like progressing in her career, and I also think had like very high expectations of herself. And so for somebody who's like as driven, but also somebody who doesn't have as much support, what I saw is my mom go through experience of burning out and having breakdowns. And so as if you're growing up with a parent who is susceptible to having a breakdown or is susceptible to having kind of emotional bouts, whether it's depression or extreme anger, you become a lot more sensitive to other people, because it's like, all right, hey, like what do I need to do, right? Like, do I need to be nice? Do I need to back off? Do I need to feed this person? So it's like I have to be hypersensitive and hyper aware of the person who's right in front of me. And so I think having had that experience, having grown up in that environment, I think that's probably what helps me to attune to other people. It's almost like a little bit of a superpower. So if I'm going around the world speaking different languages or having different experiences, I can know to flex, because that's something that I had to do from a very young age.
So you're able to listen to the room with your eyes. You can scan a room, you can perceive a situation. Do you know the best profilers or the people who does naturally what I do, profiling? They're really good in sales. They're coming from childhood where they need to overcome certain situations, family-wise or related, and that make you way more in tune than any university and any title you can have.
I believe it. I was like, yeah, so we don't learn how to attune to people in college. What? we learn how to be that kid.
It should be obligatory. Do you know from 1,000 MBAs in the United States, only 16 talk about behavior and sales? They don't tell you anything. You learn by mentoring, by exposure and failing. And I don't think they should be necessary to get your nose against the ground so many times to get good in what you do, when can be,
No.
it's a craft that can be transferred. And I'm not saying it's easy, I'm horrible at it, but it is a craft that can be transferred. Do you have any mentor helping you put all that fire on who you are today?
I don't have any professional mentors. I love me some therapy though. So
okay, can you tell us what is that?
Yeah, so I have a therapist. His name is Ralph. The way I understand that he would promote himself, or his kind of tagline, is that he focuses on transpersonal therapy. I don't know what that means, but in the experience, I don't know what that means at all. But in the experience, so I go and I see him once a week. And more than anything else, what we're talking about is the question that he asks me almost every time I go is, how good can you tolerate your life being? And so we start talking about like, what are the ways in which I might keep myself smaller? And so I can start to emulate him, like the way that he engages with me and the questions that he's asking me. And he also takes the time to break down some of the concepts. Like, all right, hey, why are you asking this question? Why is that important? What resources can I go and explore to better understand how this works? And it's very much about, all right, hey, the more that we understand why we engage in the world in the way that we do, the better able that we'll be to adjust to each situation, and then also ensure that we're not just reacting, but that we're responding in a way that makes most sense for us. And so, and just like almost like following in his example, I find myself being able to connect with people in a similar way. So like with my reps, I ask them those questions like, hey, help me understand, like, if you have a comparison mindset, you're comparing yourself to somebody else, taking a moment to ask the question of, hey, like, what is comparing yourself? What is that supporting? What is that in service of? Oh, well, it's nothing. I'm like, okay, well, how do you see it helping you? Oh, well, it doesn't. It's like, okay, well, what is it doing for you? Well, actually, I'm burning a lot of mental energy on things that I can't control. It's, okay, well, maybe what other options are there for you? Maybe I can just learn from the person instead, right? So it's really just being able to question why we're doing things, why we think the way that we do, and see if and how that's actually supporting what we're trying to accomplish or hindering our ability to do that.
Can you hit a wall when you make people think? Because I found out that when you want to try to make people think, like I'm not going to give you a result, I'm going to help you to make a process so you can think by yourself. I found
Mm-hmm.
resistance sometimes, like your job is telling me what to do, like, but let's think about it so you can develop your own process to survive any situation. Did you find, because your thoughts are deep, so not
Yes.
everybody is ready emotionally or maybe context ready to go as deep as you ask them to go, or as deep as you go to yourself?
Yeah. I do believe there is, so like, from my point of view, if I'm approaching somebody on my team, or even if I'm approaching my boyfriend, there, I can say a bunch of things, but if people aren't receptive to it, right? It's like, I don't need to hit them over the head with these kind of questions. If somebody doesn't want to go deep, they're not going to go deep. I think at that point in time, it's important to flex, like, or adjust the approach to whatever this person is almost like ready for, but also understanding, I think on a managerial level, it's almost like, let me like test them. Let me do things like one step at a time. So I'm like, if I have 7 layers of questioning and there's 7 levels of that depth, and yet this person is only able to go to level 1, okay, perfect. But next week, what do I, in between now and our next one-on-one, what kind of conversations can I be having, or what kind of seeds can I plant in this person, where when we meet next week or next month, we're starting to have level 2 conversations. So I do believe there needs to be some level of patience on the side of the person who's asking those questions. And then also recognize, like, in asking a question, in making a request, that other person has the ability to still say no.
Do you know that I see correlation between plant mama and helping people to grow? It's like,
Yes.
It's a correlation. It's like you make them stronger, bigger, and deeper. And it required a lot from you as a coach to make plant mama and making green and being stronger. So, and you has been raised by strong women in your family, whatever is what happened in the middle, but you grow up with a strong female empowerment, and that's make you, I think, the personality you are.
100%. Plants can teach us so much. There's times, like, I really do think, like, plants they communicate. They have a language. It's just a matter of us needing to attune to that language and to better understand that language. For example, I could have this beautiful monstera and vibrant green color, and then all of a sudden the baby leaves that are growing out are this yellow color, and they're dying within a couple of days. And I'm like, oh no, what's wrong with my monstera? And I pick up my monstera after a week of wondering, like, what's going on here? And I see that the roots are growing out of the bottom of the pot. I'm like, oh, this is a root bound plant. It's like, it's actually suffocating itself right now and strangling itself, and so everything that's going to grow is going to die. And so in that, I believe, that can be an analogy for what happens when you have people who are, let's say, a top performer or a quick learner, or have this limitless opportunity for growth, and you put them in an environment where they grow too fast. They grow faster than the organization can grow. Like, they're likely going to grow out abnormally. Like, the beautiful, wonderful, vibrant plant that you initially brought on is now, like, it seems like they're suffocating. They're not as vibrant. They've got these weird colors going on. They're acting out. Like, that is likely a symptom, not of the flower itself, not of the plant, not of the person, but the container in which we have them in. So rather than trying to make this person different or make this plant different, put them in a bigger space where they have more opportunities to grow and they can truly blossom and lift off.
What
So
you
yeah,
do?
plants tell me so much.
What happened when you find yourself in a pottery box where it's too small, and it's too small? How you grow from that? What is your personal experience to grow from that?
So I would say I've had 2 experiences that I can think of where I've grown faster than the company, right? I've outgrown the company. the first time that happened, I like resisted so hard. And what ended up happening was I burnt out. I was like, it's almost like I was neglecting or or abandoning myself in hopes that it's like, oh no, like I just want to fit in. I just want to fit in. Listen, if you are a big ass plant, then you need a big ass container. And like, you should just know that about yourself and know that you need companies that are going to give you a larger container. And so rather than resisting who you are and what you're meant to do. And so the second time, right, I knew that. I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to try and make myself smaller because that's going to manifest in a very negative way. I'm likely going to burn bridges. I'm going to say the wrong thing. I'm going to be so frustrated that I'm just reacting emotionally rather than almost having agency over my thoughts and my words and my actions, and being like the professional that I see myself to be. So let me make the hard choice. And yet it is difficult to say, all right, hey, I really invested in this company. They invested in me, but I also recognize that I need a lot more. And like, yes, everybody's doing their best. And sometimes company's best isn't good enough for that person. And that's okay. It's then the responsibility of the person who's growing to go and find, again, that larger container for themselves, the companies that can offer them the kinds of growth that they need. So like that, and in that, right, I think you can walk away from a company with some dignity. You can kiss everybody on the cheek. You can not burn bridges. You can have people rooting for you. And then you can also make that transition, that growth transition, in a much easier way without having to experience, to me, what were very drastic growing pains.
We talk before we start with the recording about normalization. We tend to do things every day that other people like, wow, like what? I do it every day. Like, well, I can. So we tend to normalize. And I saw a video of you talking about what would you to say to yourself if you can give an advice. And what I love about it is the deepness of something that people, I don't know if they forget, they not being told, or they normalize it in a way they don't understand it. Can you say it so beautifully that I don't want to get my tone there because you say it perfectly. Can you repeat it?
Yeah. So the question, someone had asked me the question, which was, if you can go back in time and give yourself some advice when you're first starting off in your career, what would it be? And my advice was like, know yourself. No, it's, it was the first little phrase on the Delphi Oracle, like, know thyself. So this is like ancient knowledge that we're talking about. And so the fact that it has existed and sustained over time, like this to me, it should be, all right, this is really important to know. And so I think the challenge is understanding how to go, like, theoretically knowing oneself. Okay, I know my name's Gabrielle Blackwell. I know that I grew up in Schaumburg, Illinois. It's beyond that. It's, what do you like? Like, what don't you like? What brings you joy? What are your deal breakers? Where it doesn't really matter where you are, who you're with, what you're doing. Like, these are things that you just cannot hold space for. Otherwise, it's going to impact you so negatively. And so what I had shared in this video was an exercise that people can do in order to better know themselves. And so it starts off with asking oneself 3 questions, which is like, when did I feel most like myself? Or in other words, when did I feel like my highest self? And then once you have that, like once you kind of have that visualized in your mind, or you have it written down, then ask yourself, who was I with? And the third question is, what was I doing? And so if you keep track of this on a daily basis, let's say for a month or 2 months, or even if it's every other day, and again, for 1 or 2 months, writing this down, capturing it somewhere, at some point in time, once you've gone back to review it, there's going to be some themes, some trends, a pattern that you're going to see. And then you can start asking yourself, okay, this is when I feel most like myself. This is when I feel the best about myself. This is when I'm proud, this is when I'm proud of myself. Here's who I'm with. Here's what I'm doing. And then ask yourself the question of, how often are you allowing those experiences to surface up during the day? So maybe it's like, oh, hey, it's only 10% of the time. Okay, well, what would happen if you doubled that? How much happier would you be? How much more would you engage in your experience? So like that to me is really really simple and very practical things that folks can do in order to better know who they are and what's most important to them, and essentially what they need to do, what kind of environment they need to create and cultivate for themselves in order to feel their best all the time.
Ambiverts sell 24% more than introverts and 32% more than extroverts. Come to learn with us Behavior for Sales, Human Behavior Hacker School.
You belong to two organizations who support each other and talk about mentorship. Actually, I ask you for advice because I just get in Rep Genius and I'm lost. It's too much information. What to do with this? And you're in Revenue Collective. And I have the feeling that you are more a mentor than a mentee for your philosophy. Even though when you ask for mentorship, I think you ended up mentoring your mentor.
So not in my Revenue Collective mentor, I haven't, but there have been other folks, right, where it's like, hey, like, we're going to get you a coach, or hey, I want you to talk to this person because eventually you'd be working for them, kind of thing. And after a couple of weeks, it just reversed, right, where it's like, all right, hey, like, here's the way you should look at things. Because I will say, like, there's a lot of things operationally, structurally for sales development where I do have a lot to learn. But when it comes to people management and interacting just like on a human to human basis, and people are asking, okay, well, I said do X, Y, and Z, and they're not doing it. And I was like, listen, if your mom told you to do something tomorrow, would you just do it? Like, as a grown person, your mom's just like, hey, do the things I want you to do it. Are you gonna just do it, or are you gonna resist? I might resist. I'm like, okay, well, why are you surprised that you are being somebody's mom right now and they're resisting towards you? So what is needed instead of just telling somebody to do, what's the experience that you would want to have that would get you to change or implement something new into your life? So I was going to go on a tangent, but yes, I totally turned into that coach. So yeah.
Yeah, I have the feeling. For an era where everybody's like, I always says, I don't speak Starbucks, Tinder, or Twitter. I like talking with people. I enjoy it. I'm horrible texting, so I like to talk. But in an era that you're your age, everybody texts, and they not to tend to go as deeper on the self-development, because in order to become the person you are, and I'm sure you're going to be keep evolving, you need to get naked emotionally in front of the mirror. It's difficult for you to find another peers that you can talk on this level of self-awareness. Instead, they hiding behind their titles.
Yes. So this is why I go to therapy with Ralph, because we break it down. Yeah, I'm just like, at this point in time, he's just my friend that I pay to hang out with me. I think this is really where, when I talk about the Divination Diva, tarot cards, for example, I find can be a tool to have those deeper conversations. So I'll give an example. I have one of my really dear friends. Her name's Brittany. Went to school together, and Brittany is very much like that let's just slack each other kind of person. I remember, or text each other kind of person. I remember I called her one time. And she answered the phone and she's like, is something wrong? Is there an emergency? Why aren't you texting me? I'm like, no, it's just cold outside and I don't want to use my thumbs. It's freezing. But we did a tarot card reading to try and basically unveil some of the things that she was having a struggle with. She's like, I feel so bad because I'm not this kind of person and I feel like I have to change. And she's, going through all these efforts to basically validate this idea that she has that there's something wrong with her, just inherently wrong with her. So it's like, all right, well, I can say things, but let's just pull out the tarot cards real quick and let's have a conversation about it. And so in leveraging the tarot cards, it's almost like someone can also engage in that thought process. It's everything from, what do you see in the images, right? Or, hey, listen, how about I give you the tarot book, right? And you read it yourself. And what are the words that are resonating with you and why? Or how can you see this coming up in your life? So I think it really is a matter of trying to find and leverage tools that are going to be accessible for, that are going to help people be able to access those deeper conversations.
You're in a work transition space. What happened with you? Because I have the feeling that every step in your life has to do with an internal change more than an external change. And you did a change in the middle of the pandemic from what most people were like, don't move. I don't know what is going to happen. But what happened with you, and what is the transition that you're going through work-wise?
Yeah. So for the past year, I've been working at a company called Infutor. Um, I had found this job, or I had been introduced to this opportunity through somebody I had worked with in the past, and it was also during a time where I could not secure a job to save my life. So I was like, all right, I need an opportunity to get back into the workforce. I think I also lacked a lot of confidence. I was very insecure, like a year ago, about, all right, hey, I think that I'm really good at this job. Like, I think I can do it, but I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe it was a fluke. And so over the past year, and thinking about this internal experience, it's like, all right, I'm now back into a job. I'm back like in my hometown. I have a lot more support. I'd gotten I had a boyfriend who's like really awesome. So I'm like, there's so many good things happening in my life. And there came this question of, well, when is it all going to come crashing down? And I'm like, what would happen if I didn't think that way? So like, I started going to therapy on a weekly basis. I journaled. I started to interrogate like those doubtful thoughts. And then over time, I said, again, Ralph asked the question, like, how good can you tolerate your life being? And it's not to say that being at Infutor was a bad thing at all. It's not to say that it wasn't a great company and that I didn't have great coworkers and a cool boss. It was more so thinking about, all right, when I ask myself the question of how good can I tolerate my life being, I see something way bigger, way, way bigger. And so I started to put a little bit more form around what that vision actually looked like. So like, all right, well, what does it mean for me to be somewhere bigger? It's something very specific to, they need to be investing more in sales development. They need to be growing out their team 2x, 3x, 4x in order for me to have the career, like the upward mobility that I'm really desiring. And I thought about, okay, well, what kind of impact do I want this company to have, like in society, in the community? It's like, all right, well, they're going to be investing in communities that are more highly like they have higher representations of like Black and brown people. And so like I started just like envision all these things. And then like the hiring manager for Gong hit me up and was like, hey, I've really been enjoying your LinkedIn content. Would you be interested in talking about this SDR manager role? So it was like everything that I had like imagined for myself as to, hey, what is going to help me most in being able to answer that question? How good can I tolerate my life being? Like it met every single one of those check boxes. And I was like, this is what I envisioned. This is what I wanted. Like, this is what I truly believe is going to help me soar. So I think really being able to develop and solidify that confidence in myself, and then also allowing myself to remove any kind of limitations that I believed I had to carry, like that is really what helps me be able to make the change and move into this transition.
So the reading that the changes happen internally, and maybe like what do you mean? Like, oh yeah, I've been thinking about it for 6 months. Has it ever happened to you? Like people like you're impulsive, like, nope, I've been working in this for months. You don't know about it because it's about me, not about you informing you.
So there's this phrase, I think it's like a Wiccan phrase. It's like, as within, so without. It's all to say whatever's going on within you is going to be reflected in your environment. So if within you, if you're constantly thinking my life is shit, your life is going to be shit. Like if you're constantly doubting yourself, if you're constantly invalidating yourself, like you're going to continue to find invalidating experiences. So to change your outside, you have to change your inside.
So Gabrielle, we talked longer than I expected. Like, wow, this we can go. I think we're gonna do for episode 2. What about that? You talk about what would be the advice to yourself. Now, the new generations are pretty different than the generation at your age. They're started in sales, and women in sales are a different crowd because you don't find a lot of women in tech, and that is something that is so start seeing more ladies in tech and high heel. I love it. So yeah. What are the 3 or 5 advice regarding that, how you did it and where you get it? And I would like to have an advice from the internal PowerPoint, because I think that the best of yourself still developing and growing and moving, and that's what makes you where you are today, not the diploma, who you will evolve as a person.
100% agree with you. I think it goes back to knowing yourself. Because again, if you don't know yourself, if you don't know why you don't know why you feel the way you do, you don't know what your emotions and your feelings are telling you, then I believe it'll be really, really hard to know whether you're in a bad spot or if you're in a good spot. So like if you're not able to reflect on what your experiences are, the good, the bad, the in between, you run the risk of repeating things that you might not actually want to repeat. So I would say my first advice is like really knowing yourself, and it goes back to asking, like, the first start of that is, asking yourself some questions. It could be getting a coach, right? It could be having a really rock star mentor. I believe the second piece of advice that I would give.
Doesn't need to be 5. Sometimes I would say,
yeah.
I prefer 1 well done than 5 they're burning.
I really do think the know yourself part is so key, because like for me, I had to go through such a glorious burnout. Oh gosh, it was a transformative experience, hitting like what I hope to be anyway is my absolute rock bottom moment.
You did your caterpillar. You went your cocoon until you finally flourished.
Yeah,
in a different way.
So the funny thing is, it's like, when the butterfly actually emerges, it has to just like hang there for hours until like the wings harden up and it can actually fly away. So when I came out of the cocoon state, I was very much aware, like, you know what, I haven't actually been taking ownership or accountability for my career. I haven't been taking ownership and accountability of how I make my choices. I can either spend the rest of my life pointing fingers at everybody else, expecting for them to solve my problems for me, whether it's people or processes or an organization. But in doing that, I am relinquishing my power. I am actually stripping myself of any agency that I have. And so I was like, I'm going to stop doing that. So, I think like so like that's like, maybe that's advice number 2 is like, own your power, own your ambition, own your values, own your principles, own your decisions, and know that you are ultimately responsible for the experience that you're having in the world. Right. So like, yes, are there things that are going to be completely out of your control? Absolutely. But you have ownership and agency over how you respond to that experience. So like, are you going to be this kind of person who's going to be blown away every time like the wind blows, or are you going to be sure-footed and steady in your journey? So I just say, like, own yourself.
Gabrielle, it has been an absolutely pleasure talking with you. And I would say to people, like, follow you, contact you, but your content and LinkedIn is funny, is fresh, is raw, is deep. It's have all the components for like when you're having your coffee like 2 p.m. like, I need to see something different, but in my area of expertise. And your content on LinkedIn is one of those. So I would say people try to follow you. We're going to have your info below. Thank you very much. It's been really delightful.
Oh, thank you. I've loved this. This is awesome.
Selling is a craft and a science. Come to learn with us the superpower behind behavior for sales. Human Behavior Hacker School. Different ages, different backgrounds, different stories. One common denominator: the desire to unleash a powerhouse woman. Selling on heels. Give a girl the right shoes and she will conquer the world.